Speaking of the next pair, there was a few tits in Dome of the Dead. It's a solid segue.
Less impressive titties, though.
Well, it's a less impressive movie. Dome of the Dead, and there are two movies by this name, at least. So we are talking about the 2006 movie, which is a very, very low budget movie.
There's a budget?
Well, I'm assuming they had to pay somebody something. I don't know who they paid and what they paid them, but at least China Dash went into this. But it's a very simple plot. There's I think it's called Outcome University. It's a very cliche college.
What do they think? They're Batman or something?
Oh, H.P. Lovecraft even. But yeah, so this is a university. There's this one gothic chick and her friend who doesn't seem gothic at all. They get on the wrong side of this hilariously sallow and bally chick who wants to get revenge on them for laughing at her in class. Which is such a ridiculous thing to do, what to get revenge for. So there's a professor who's talking about zombie blood. So she she steals the zombie blood and pours it into the goth chick's mouth, and the goth chick becomes a zombie. And it's some good stuff. What did you think about this one, Chucky?
Jeez, where do I start? I've got so many notes on this one, just because there's so many things wrong with it.
Sit and spin, bitches.
Yeah. It opens up with this guy doing some intro, going, "Are you afraid? You should be." I'm like, I haven't seen anything yet. Why should I be afraid? Anyways, so that got off to a pretty stupid start. Like you said, there's some scenes with some nudity and some potential sex scenes, I guess. Not that we ever really see anything going too far beyond kissing naked and stuff, but yeah, there's that dude at the start who, he leaves with blue balls or whatever, and he has the worst peripheral vision ever. Like, there's this zombie girl behind him, and based on the camera angles, it looks like he should have easily been able to see her standing there. And then, like, more of them come around, and this dude starts doing parkour out of nowhere, and I don't know what the fuck was going on. And then after that, then it turns into this lesbian scene with probably mismatched music. A lot of the music in the movie is mismatched. They just play, just a lot of different random songs that they could probably find that were like free for commercial use or something. There's a lot of generic radio rock, and then some heavy metal, and then even some weird, I don't know, whatever else that music was. But I almost feel like at times the director made this just as an excuse to see some titties.
Yeah, it's interesting because the director is actually somewhat well known for his throughout the late 80s and 90s, he had quite a few somewhat one known is a strong word, but within like the horror community, he did some movies that people talk about: Vampire Cop, Cannibal Hookus, a few others that might stand out. I've not seen many of them, but I do know that based on what I've seen and read, this is probably not one of his finest works.
Well, you better hope not. There's multiple scenes in the movie where it feels like he's recorded parts of the conversation separately and not at the same time. Like, you can imagine that maybe, like just for instance, there's a scene where the two girls run into that blonde chick who, is cracking all these kind of jokes at them, and it sounds like, okay, they filmed this one girl's lines, and then later in the day or another day, they filmed the other girl's lines, and they just kind of splice the two together. And that happens a lot in the movie.
Yeah, I got the same type of feeling with the whole college lecture. Like I said, it focuses on the professor, and then it shows the students, and it just goes back and forth. And it sort of cracked me up. I was going to ask, did you watch? There's sort of like an after credit type scene.
I can't recall. Remind me what it is if I did.
Well, it's this guy hitting on this girl, and her father comes in, and eventually they get attacked by zombies.
No, I don't think so. I think once the credits were up, I was like, okay,
I
we're
don't
done.
blame. I don't blame you. So I actually did watch that scene, and it was some of the worst stuff I've ever seen. Like the guy really wants to get with his chick, and the chick's like, I don't know if she's like really naive, but he's making all these sexual innuendos, and she has no idea what he's talking about, and it just it keeps going and going for like 5-6 minutes. So it's some solid stuff. I've actually seen this one once before, way back in the day, or maybe around 2010, 2011. I was on another radio podcast type thing for horror movie fans, and we had a show where we covered like 5 zombie movies, and this being one of them. And I think I was like 15 or 16 back then. And I wasn't much impressed with this back then either. I think it was probably the worst movie of the 5 that we watched. But I do remember, um, that it's a bad movie, but it's, in my opinion, some of it's so bad that you can't help but have an okay time with it. I'm not saying it's a movie that I would watch again anytime soon, but I certainly don't think it's as bad as other movies I've seen in recent times. At least it's not like overly dry, and it's pretty short runtime, so it's not like it keeps you for too long.
Yeah.
That said, I do not want to be known as the guy who's defending Dome of the Dead.
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly seen worse movies. So it's by no means the worst movie I've ever seen, but it's it's way down there. I mean, obviously the dialogue is pretty terrible in the movie, and even the audio is just. You could tell this is like a type of movie where someone's just kind of grabbed a camera and a bunch of people they know, and it's like, let's film this shit. It does have Tiffany Shepis in it, who is quite well known in, a lot of low budget horror. So I know they attached her name to the poster, even though she's got more of a smaller role in the movie. And she usually gets her tits out in almost everything I've seen her in, so at least there's that. So, there is a little bit of draw just from her name being attached to it, but everyone else in the movie, in terms of their acting, is pretty terrible.
Terrible, yet fun. I mean, who doesn't like the 2 chicks, a goth chick and her friend? I mean, they made a wonderful pair.
Another thing in the movie is, like, after this lead character gets the zombie blood poured in her mouth, like you said, ridiculous type of revenge plot here, especially considering, that blonde girl, she's really the bitch of the movie. But isn't it weird how all the other zombies in the movie, they don't talk and they all move slow, and then this one, the lead character, she can still talk quite normally and still moves around quite normally. Is that like an inconsistency? I don't think they put a lot of thought into it.
Maybe because she got the blood poured into her instead of bitten, it's different. I mean,
I'm not buying that.
Yeah, I'm not buying it either. I suspect that the I don't know if more than one person. Apparently the same guy who directed it also wrote the movie. I suspect they didn't think that much about the type, consistency between the zombies, and I suspect there's probably quite a bit he didn't think about when making this movie. On the upside,
there's an upside.
Actually, you say that, and I actually forget what I was going to say, so there may not be an upside. Well, I was going to say, I did like the really terrible flashback with the professor. It's like, oh, it's you, I remember. And then it goes back to like a 5-minute flashback scene of this love gone wrong between professor and student. I think I cried during that part.
Yeah. Because another thing we should mention is the effects in the movie, which, I mean, like you said, the budget might have been $20 for this movie. If so, they probably overachieved in a matter of speaking. But when you compare this to just pretty much most other movies that you watch, obviously it's pretty terrible, like the effects and all. For instance, there's this one scene I don't think people care about spoilers.
Yeah, for this movie, I can't imagine that's a main concern.
Yeah, but I think it was somewhere around halfway through the movie that Professor gets attacked by those zombies and he gets his arm torn off. And there's a scene in which he's falling down. You can clearly see his hand through his coat. I mean, they just kind of saw that and went, fuck it, no one will care. We'll put it in.
Yeah, that was certainly some of the best special effects I've seen.
Yeah, and then towards the end, and actually I thought, even despite that and a few little bits and pieces, I thought they were doing okay in that area. And then they just blow it completely open at the end. During that news report, there's this just random guy shooting these zombies, but it doesn't look like it's actually, like they've just spliced some clip of some dude shooting on top of it. So it just looks in no way, shape or form, it just doesn't look like it. It looked like someone was starting to watch a movie over the fucking news report rather than, actually shooting a live video of someone shooting these zombies. And then obviously the effects of the actual gun itself, I can't remember exactly what it sounded or looked like, but I know it was terrible. Pew pew pew. Well, it wasn't like that, but it was just so unlike what it's meant to sound like.
Yeah, I mean, and you can tell by the enthusiasm that both of us share that this is certainly a movie you should get out and see. And luckily for anybody interested, it should be on YouTube. So, by all means, if you would like to give Dome of the Dead a shot, and I might as well mention this too, because it came up when both of us were going for this. This, like I said at the beginning, is another movie by this name that came out in 2012. And I actually started watching that one, and I got about 5-6 minutes in until I realized, oh hey, this is not the right movie. Because like I've said, I've seen this one before, and it didn't feel right. I mean, it's been 10 years since I've seen it, so I thought, well, maybe it could be. And then I'm watching it and this does not feel like the same movie. So I do a little research and I found out, oh hey, this is not the right movie. This movie on IMDb has a 2.2, and the one from 2012 has a 2.3. So either way, no matter which movie you're watching, you're going to get some quality cinema. But I suspect, just based on what I saw from the 2012 movie, that movie might be slightly more professional. But I don't know if it can be quite as fun as this movie is.
Well, the most entertaining thing for me in this movie was just seeing as they're driving towards this, or driving into this drive-in theater, that they actually showed a screen saying they're playing Silent Hill and See No Evil. And obviously much better movies than this. I don't know, it was nice to see those movies on there, and
If I recall, both of those came out in 2006. So it's it makes sense, since this movie is made in 2006.
They literally drove past a drive-in theater that was actually playing those movies, which is my guess. But I kind of get the feeling they didn't really have a whole lot of permission to shoot in a lot of these locations.
I can't imagine. That brings me up another point I wanted to mention. The whole this is sort of a subplot in this movie where the goth chick has some financial issues, so she is moved to what's called a charity dome. The dome's it seems to me just to be a factory. Her room, quote unquote, was just this giant garbage heap with rats and stuff, which struck me as somewhat unprofessional on the part of the the college. But I'm guessing that if they have some of the students living in rat-infested domes, it's not really high priority.
Yeah, well, the dean was all levels of professional.
I did like that guy. He has some quality.
I like how he's talking on the phone to her, I don't know who this is, but I would send you to live there or whatever.
Yeah, see, that's why, a movie like this it's horrible, but there's enough in it to, not get, like I said, you're not going to want to watch this again, but you might want to say, tell a friend to check it out, tell them to have a good time, and you might have an okay time. Yeah, so the movie is horrible, but it's still somewhat fun. It's almost difficult. See, the budget itself doesn't really matter much to me. And I feel like Chucky said, the special effects were, for the budget they had, they were decent aside from a few scenes. But the random sex scenes didn't really do, it didn't really matter much to the story. Like the two lesbian chicks, well, I guess one was probably bisexual, but I mean, that seemed like entirely pointless, just an excuse to show another zombie attack, and it's not like the zombie attacks were like amazing, but that just might be more a complaint with zombie movies in general. This movie's not great, and I would even necessarily say you should watch it one time, but you might have an okayish time if you go in with the expectations that, hey, this movie's, going to be somewhat shit. So I'm going to give this one a 5.5 out of 10. And I'm actually probably going to, and I've thought about this throughout me talking about it, I'm going to actually move it up to a 6 out of 10. so it's still below average, but it's something. In before 1 out of 10.
Here's the thing about this movie, and we've talked about this before, where your mood can also affect your rating of the movie. And I think I actually watched this while I was in the best possible mood to have ever watched it, and I also went into it knowing that I was expecting a 1 out of 10 movie. So when your expectations are that low, you can always potentially talk yourself into giving it a higher rating than you probably would have, any other time. And so I actually at times considered giving this a 2 out of 10. But I just know that I can't see myself enjoying this on any level ever again.
Well, you say that.
I have to give it a 1 out of 10. I just have to. If I don't know if I could live with myself.
Yeah, see, it's interesting. Now is this? I can't remember all the movies you've spoken about. Do you know how many other movies you've given a 1 out of 10, or is this the first one?
So far on the website, there's definitely a whole lot of other movies I've seen that I never added to the website that I would have probably given a 1 out of 10. Now, I probably can't recall what those are because I just never cared to ever see them again. They all would have likely been very low budget stuff like this one. I mean, this is the type of movie where if someone, like I said earlier, if someone just grabbed a bunch of their friends and said, hey, let's make a movie, we've got no experience at all, even though this guy does have some experience and he's, like I said, it's got Tiffany Shepard in it and stuff, so it's not the worst actors in the world. Obviously, a lot of them aren't good, but if someone were to make a movie with a bunch of their friends and then it turned out like this, I would call that a very, like, a great achievement. It would be a good movie for that type of situation. But when you're comparing this to watching all the other types of movies that you watch, whether it's in cinema, on Blu-ray, whatever, this is a turd.
Yeah, I find it interesting. I've rated a few things, I'm not sure if I've given something a 1 out of 10, but I have given a few 0 out of 10s, which I guess get rounded up to a 1 out of 10.
How can you give this a 6 and then give The Greasy Strangler a 0 or Triloquist a 0?
I was just about to talk about that. See, with both of those movies that you mentioned, for Triloquist I enjoyed one thing in it, just a single line I thought was funny. For Greasy Strangler, I didn't enjoy anything in it. But for this movie, like I said, some of the dialogue is just so ridiculous, and like that talkative roommate of the goth chick in the factory dome. I mean, her dialogue was just funny enough to be amusing. Like the Saturn Bolly chick, like the whole sit and spin, bitches. It just, like, after she said that, I cracked up for like 30 seconds, because it was just so horrible. But it amused me. So that's why this is getting a much, I guess, better rating than either one of those two, because even though it's a really bad movie, I find myself consistently enjoying some of the dialogue and aspects of it, even though the story itself is extraordinarily poor. And I mean, as for the whole thing, for Fawcett, when I was over in Haiti, I saw some zombies. I got some zombie blood. Like, it just, the whole thing is just so ridiculous. And I just found myself in a lot more fun with this than I ever did the Greasy Strangler. And before bullshit artist. But...
Well, I think we've talked about this movie for way too long. It's probably the movie we've spent the most time talking about out of every movie we've discussed, so that's deeply disturbing.